Why did God call us sons? Are there no other words he could have used? Why use son? Why use heirs? Why use born again, begotten? The reason is because he is trying to use words that we are familiar with, or words that we can understand, to communicate a similar but higher truth. So, this means, to understand what God means by calling us sons, we must understand what the word son means physically. It's as simple as that. Remember, we cannot know God unless he reveals himself. You cannot put God in a lab and study him. That's why science cannot fully understand God, because he cannot be studied. You can only know him to the degree to which he reveals himself. This means we have to look for how he reveals himself and study it to know him. Now, one way God reveals himself, as scriptures tells us, is through creation. Romans 1 verse 20 says, "For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, eternal power, and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God." Through God's creation, we can clearly study his divine nature. So when God calls you his son, you need to have a basic understanding of what and who a son is to be able to relate with that declaration. This does not mean that the way things are physically is the way they are with God. It only means that the way things are physically are similitudes or typification of how they are with God. For instance, to become a son on earth, you need the sperm of a man and the ovary of a woman to form a zygote, which is the first proof of physical life. But you do not need such exact system in place for God to give birth to a son. This is why some religion finds it difficult to accept that Jesus is God's son. They ask, how can God have a son? Does it mean he has a wife? They have copied the limitation of human biological reproduction and pasted it on God. They even forget that reproduction is not only a biological term. If you are a mentor to someone, and this person learns under you and begins to live out the things you have taught them, we can also say you have reproduced yourself in this person. That's even on a basic level. We can have mental reproduction, academic reproduction, and so on. How much more the God that created reproduction itself? How dare you say, God cannot have a son without a wife? A whole God cannot. The very same person who created possibilities and impossibilities. God can do all things, for by him is all things, and through him all things consists. It means he designed you and decided that for you to reproduce biologically, you must mate with an opposite sex. That same being can do anything and is not limited to the rules he has set. God called us his son because what we represent in him is typical of what a son represents to his father on earth. So, when we speak of sonship, we are speaking of reproduction after its kind. God did not use the term son casually. He wasn't looking for a term and just randomly chose that. He used it very intentionally. A son in a home is not less of a human being than the father. That means you as a son of God are not less of a God as God. I mean, it's pure logic. Stop fighting what doesn't kill you. What are you afraid of? Everything reproduces after its kind. A mango tree gives birth to mangoes. A dog gives birth to dogs. A human gives birth to humans. God gives birth to gods. It's that simple. Usually, the next question is, if we say we are God, why can't we do what God does? Short answer. We will do all that God does as we mature. If you see a baby born today starts lifting weights, won't you take to your heels? So, again, why did God chose to call us sons? He chose to call us sons because we are to him by nature what we are to our earthly fathers by biology. Your father provides. God provides. Your father cares for you. God cares for you. Your father loves you no matter what you do. God loves you no matter what you do. Your father always forgives you. God always forgives us. Your father cannot kill you. God cannot kill you. The reason we have a warped mindset about God is because fatherhood on earth has failed grossly. So, subconsciously, we carry over the imageries of our earthly father over to God. And then there is nothing to write home about. But thank God that in God, the true image and picture of fatherhood is both restored and smeared upon our once darkened minds.